It is time to lift the ban on nuclear power production in Australia. I'm Benjamin Pearce of the Citizens Party. It's time to lift the 1998 ban on nuclear power in Australia because nuclear power is the safest, cleanest and most reliable form of electricity known to humankind. In a minute, we're going to take a closer look at these three facts. First, the Citizens Party has drafted a petition calling for the removal of the ban on nuclear power. We're asking you to sign our petition and add your name to the rapidly growing chorus of voices that are demanding this irrational ban be lifted. We'll come back to this at the end. Now let's take a look at each of the three facts just mentioned in turn. Look at this graph of the number of deaths per trillion kilowatt hours from various sources of electricity generation. As you can see, nuclear has the lowest of all the numbers. But, you might object, what about Fukushima, Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island? How many people died as a result of Chernobyl? Let's consult the United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation. They published a report in 2008 that examined the health effects due to radiation from the Chernobyl accident. As you can see, they report that 28 patients died of acute radiation syndrome within the first 4 months, and 2 more died from injuries unrelated to radiation exposure. Their study of the long-term effects identified 60 other people who died from cancers and other diseases related to their radiation exposure in the decade since the incident. Those are the 90 deaths you see in the graph. That means 0 deaths from nuclear accidents anywhere other than Chernobyl. Also, the Chernobyl reactor had no containment structure, which the International Atomic Energy Agency defines as a concrete and steel dome over the reactor designed to keep the radiation inside the plant in the event of such an accident. Such a reactor would never have been licensed in the West. Therefore, in reality, nuclear power in the Western world has had 0 deaths per trillion kilowatt hours of operation. This is true of no other source of energy. In Fukushima, there were no deaths due to radiation. In 3 Mile Island, there were no deaths due to radiation. The American Journal of Epidemiology found the pattern of results does not provide convincing evidence that radiation releases from the 3 Mile Island nuclear facility influenced cancer risk. The average radiation dose to people living within 10 miles of the plant was about equal to a chest X-ray. The maximum dosage that any individual received was about 1/3 of the average background radiation received by US residents in a year. Despite tens of thousands of hysterical anti-nuclear articles, what the data shows is nuclear power simply has the best safety record of any source of power known to humankind. Nuclear power is also the cleanest. Producing electricity from nuclear power produces no emissions other than water vapour. It emits no greenhouse gases or any pollutants. Some people object, what about the radioactive waste? The great advantage that nuclear power has over other sources of energy is that it is truly renewable. England, France, India, China and Russia have been reprocessing their nuclear waste since the 1960s. By reprocessing nuclear fuel, 97% of the fuel can be reused. The amount that's left is so tiny that you could fit all the spent fuel from the United States since the 1950s into a cube 30 metres on a side. Australian studies of the safety of geological disposal of nuclear waste show it can be buried in geological formations that haven't moved in 100,000 years. The safety and cleanliness of nuclear power are why leading environmentalists have changed their minds and are now supporting it. The European Union has moved to include nuclear power in its plans to create a climate-friendly future. Nuclear power is the most reliable source of electricity production and the alternatives don't even come close. Notice wind and solar power are down at 35.4% and 24.9% capacity. That's because, among other things, the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine. Wind and solar are just too intermittent. Would you want your energy source to be less than 35% reliable? The support for nuclear power in Australia has grown dramatically. Between July and December last year, total support for nuclear energy for electricity production in Australia grew from 42% to 48%, while opposition fell from 36% to 33%. The Citizens Party says it's time to face the facts. Australia's 1998 ban on nuclear power was irrational and ill-advised. Please sign our petition calling for the lifting of Australia's ban on nuclear power. Having the safest, cleanest and most reliable source of electricity is a vital necessity for Australia. Please add your name to the petition and tell your friends about it.
Spoken by Benjamin Pearce and authorised by Craig Isherwood, Citizens Party, Melbourne.